This episode is brought to you by San Pellegrino Ciao. A gift from Italy to your home. San Pellegrino Ciao is a flavored sparkling water made with real fruit juice, finished with a pinch of Sicilian salt for a perfectly balanced taste. So which flavor will you choose? Peach, lime, blood orange, cherry, or maybe the all-new limoncello? Crafted in Italy with 0 grams of added sugar. San Pellegrino Ciao. Buy it now.
This episode is brought to you by Fox One. Watch all 104 matches of the FIFA World Cup live in 4K for just $19.99 a month with 3 days free. Build your own multi-view, choose up to 3 streams, and follow player spotlights. Stay on top of every moment with live stats, highlights, and instant replays. The FIFA World Cup, streaming live on Fox One. Offers are subject to change. See fox.com for complete terms and conditions.
Quiet Riot.
Welcome to Quiet Riot B-Side, the deep dive companion to the News and Politics Thursday chat. I'm Andreou.
And I'm Naomi Smith, here to change the record.
And I'm Kenny, keeping an eye on the A-side and the B-side proceedings to make sure we don't end up at the C-side.
Now, we decided as a one-off to wake up super early, or in my case, stay up super late, in order to bring you our raw, unfiltered, bleary-eyed reaction to the Makerfield result, considering how important it might prove going forward.
The result, well, it's expected around 4 a.m., at which point I will probably be on the M6 or the M74.
Probably near Makerfield.
Probably. No, I'm not. I'm not doing Vox Pops and Makerfield greasy spoons. I'm not doing that. These days are gone.
You should, instead of your usual dogging.
You sound jealous, Alex. You sound really jealous. So, listeners, do forgive us if this episode reaches you a little later than usual.
Unfortunately, my schedule did not allow for this. And to be honest, as a politics geek, I do have the worst FOMO imaginable. But I am sure I will get to contribute my penneth worth next week. So without further ado, I'll travel into the future and present to you sleep-deprived Kenny and Alex getting everything wrong.
Quiet Riot.
Right, so it's 3:45.
That's a.m.
a.m. on Friday morning. We've just seen the declaration in Makerfield and Andy Burnham's speech. We got earlier the results from Aberdeen and Arbroath because there were, of course, 2 more by-elections happening because of 2 SNP MPs who are now members of the Holyrood Parliament.
That's right.
And have vacated their seats in Westminster. And all 3 of them are very interesting.
Aren't they, though?
One of them is obviously quite a bit more consequential, I think it's fair to say.
Yeah, I'll give you that one, even with the Scottish accent.
Yeah, I'm at home in South London. You are in a sort of lay-by outside Glasgow.
Well, I'm parked out up behind the filling station on the north side of Glasgow. There's roadworks and all my usual haunts are sort of blocked off.
There was no space in your favourite dogging spot, was there?
That was in Essex the last time we talked about this.
So I can hear the rain gently tapping on your
It's lovely,
windshield.
isn't it?
Yeah, if people really strain to listen, they'll be able to hear the gentle tapping of rain on your windshield. Right, so big result in Makerfield. I mean, let's start from that. Big result, right?
Huge. I mean, the headline was always going to be Starmer loses, because if Burnham lost, Starmer and Labour were effectively finished. But if Burnham won and showed that he could defeat reform, problem for Starmer as well. So the headline, not a surprise to those who've been watching it over the last sort of 5-6 days, but Burnham wins, Starmer loses.
Look, and he didn't just win, did he? Because there was maybe a scenario where he won very narrowly and that could be spun into something. But I think the size of the victory, I mean, first of all, it was a huge turnout, almost 60%, significantly higher than the actual general election.
That's unusual,
and that's
isn't
the
it?
first, we were chatting before, that's the first time that's happened since the Roy Jenkins by-election. When was that?
84?
82, actually, I think.
Actually, just down the road from where I'm parked, not dealing drugs or dogging, as it happens.
He kept insisting. And so it is significant. And it is significant that he has increased Labour's share of the vote. He has increased the lead over Reform. He has increased even numerically the number of votes that he got. So looking at the previous result, Josh Simons got 18,200 votes there, 45%. And Andy Burnham has got over 24,000, 55%.
If you add the three right-wing contenders together, they still fall short of what Burnham got as a total.
Yeah, well, I don't think you need to add the Conservatives. They don't make much of a difference. Now, that is the other interesting aspect of it. We are seeing a pattern, I think, and it's important to talk about it. It looks to me like Reform struggled to convert their national share in the polls into actual seats.
Yeah.
So let me give you a few facts and figures. Of the 8 MPs that Reform have in Parliament at the moment, only 4 were elected as Reform MPs. And that includes Sarah Pochin, who was elected in a by-election, the very first by-election, by 6 votes. So that was a pretty narrow result. In the polls, they are, in some of them, ahead by double figures. When it comes to trying to convert that into parliamentary seats, they keep failing. And at some point, a question has to be asked, why are you failing to convert that general lead into seats? It could be a number of reasons. One of them could be that because Nigel Farage is so disliked and Reform Party is so polarizing, that everyone unites against them. And actually, it's interesting that there is something the Makerfield by-election shares with other by-elections that we've seen where Labour lost. We could go to the by-election in Wales. That was for a seat in the Old Senedd. But we could go to the by-election in Gordon and Denton. And each time, people have been very savvy about identifying who is the most likely person to beat Reform. And in those 3 cases, once it was Plaid, once it was the Greens, and this time it was Labour, and really piling behind that party.
I think that unpicking this result might be a little bit more complicated than those other by-elections, because I can see a constituency of people who we might describe as traditional Labour voters, that Burnham was appealing to them. He had that part of the vote pretty well sewn up. As you say, he was also appealing to those who wanted to keep Farage out, and the Liberal Democrat and Green vote evaporated, presumably as they came across to swing behind Burnham for that reason. But there's also, I think, a very substantial constituency who want to get rid of Starmer. And the overlap between these 3 really substantial constituencies, I do think will be very difficult to unpick. It's a unique set of circumstances, and Burnham's engineered it, of course, to be this way in many ways. But I'm not saying that we're wrong to say that it's an anti-Farage vote that really helped him. But I do think it wasn't the only factor, the only substantial factor here as well.
It never is. And all those by-elections, they have significantly different features.
Yeah.
And you can't really extrapolate from them onto a bigger picture because they're just little data points. You simply don't have enough of them. And also you have distinct behavioral differences in the way people vote in by-elections, where the whole party machine is concentrated in one place. Everyone is focused on that by-election, especially this one, because everyone understood how consequential it was. But at the same time, we are now seeing Reform again and again fail to convert those seats. The BBC had Danny Kruger on, Conservative until about 5 minutes ago, but now Reform and accusing the establishment parties of ruining the country. I mean, you couldn't even make it up. But so he gave his spiel, and he has been giving this spiel at every single by-election, unchallenged. Let's have a little listen.
Reform are running Labour very close, but it has been a Labour seat for 100 years. I mean, it's only ever been Labour since the birth of the Labour Party. Yeah. So in the local elections, we took all of the council seats, but only 2 years ago at the parliamentary elections, there was a 45% vote share to Labour. So this is Labour heartland, and I think it's extraordinary that we see a insurgent party, a new party, challenging this most core Labour seat. But the fact is, it's an extraordinary by-election, as we've discussed. The fact is, just to emphasise the challenge that we're up against.
So there are several things in there that are untrue. Reform is not an insurgent or new party. Reform is simply the latest iteration of Nigel Farage's project that has been around for 2 decades and has won European elections and things like that. It has come first plenty of times.
He's got a European pension on the back of this project. That's how long it's been going on for. Yeah.
So this is not some plucky rebellion. This is the best funded political party in the UK for the last 2 years. You know, this isn't some sort of small insurgency. The second thing to say about that is that they keep saying, well, we ran them very close, we came second. You came second last time and ran them very close last time. And they keep saying, this seat has always been Tory. This seat has always been Labour. Well, if you're running on the idea, the notion that you're a completely new insurgent party, every seat you run for will never have been your seat.
That's right.
That goes with the territory. Every single seat will be new to you. So stop making excuses for yourself that, wow, we did amazingly considering, you know, we didn't exist until 2 minutes ago. That's just nonsense, to be honest. They won every single ward of that constituency in the local elections. It is a heavily Brexit voting area.
It's almost 2/3, isn't it?
It is almost entirely white. It is quite well-to-do, high car ownership. This is the sort of seat they should be winning.
It's a sort of seat they have to be winning. And let's not forget that for a general election in this country, we're still running under first past the post, which we all hate. But first past the post is going to kill reform on the basis of tonight's showing. What a shame. Oh dear, how sad, never mind. Their excuse is going to be the Burnham factor, but the resources that they threw at this campaign were huge. Now, let's be clear, Labour really rolled out, you know, the A-team as well. I mean, they were claiming, Labour activists, that they'd knocked on every door at least 8 times in the constituency. So there was a lot of money being spent by both sides. But if that's, you know, if Reform genuinely have ambitions to take the big job in this country, tonight was a sign that they're not where they need to be right now. And there's nothing to indicate that they're going to improve over the coming weeks and months either, as things are at the moment.
And considering their national share is going backward.
Exactly.
At their peak, they were over 30%. They're now back to the mid-20s. Quite consistently, considering that Restore Britain managed to get 7% of the vote, which is above where they're polling nationally. So they're doing that bit better than Reform.
And they are a cheeky upstart,
converting, and they are, you know, obviously they have a trillionaire behind them. Let's not forget that, and they are spending vast amounts of money, especially online. But the amount of votes they got were not inconsequential.
No.
It's still very pleasing that even adding the two together, and you can never really, I feel, add votes together. It's not that straightforward. But even if you add them together, they come nowhere near Burnham's total. And so I think it changes the calculus. The size of the victory, I think, for me, changes the calculus. It means there is now momentum there.
There is, very definitely.
Riot. Starting or growing your own business can be intimidating and lonely at times. Your to-do list may feel endless with new tasks, and lists can easily begin to overrun your life. So finding the right tool that not only helps you out, but simplifies everything as a built-in business partner can be a game changer. For millions of businesses, that tool is Shopify. Shopify is the commerce platform behind millions of businesses around the world and 10% of all e-commerce in the US. From household names like Gymshark, Rare Beauty, and Heinz, to brands just getting started. Shopify has hundreds of ready-to-use templates that can help you build a beautiful online store that matches your brand's style. And you can tackle all the important tasks in one place, from inventory to payments to analytics and more. No need to save multiple websites or try to figure out what platform is hosting the tool that you need. And if people haven't heard about your brand, you can get the word out like you have a marketing team behind you, with easy-to-run email and social media campaigns to reach customers wherever they're scrolling or strolling. Start your business today with the industry's best business partner, Shopify, and start hearing. Sign up for your $1 per month trial today at shopify.com/realm. Go to shopify.com/realm. That's shopify.com/realm.
Quiet, Riot. Before we go on to ponder the future, can I ask you to explain a little bit to me about the two Scottish by-elections? Because they were both very tasty and individual and interesting in their own way, weren't they?
They were.
So first of all, you have Aberdeen South.
It's almost like we could do them in reverse order, because with three very, very different by-elections tonight and three very different results as well. So Makerfield we've covered. Aberdeen South, the Scottish Conservatives won Aberdeen South, and I'm struggling to think of a time in my entire lifetime, so that's since 1967, when the Scottish Conservatives have won a by-election.
Yeah, it's a long time, isn't it?
I mean, it's more of a political earthquake. Hey, that cliche has finally arrived.
But it's also a kind of outlier, isn't it?
Well, it is, because that particular by-election, the Conservatives turned it into a war over oil. And Aberdeen has suffered hugely in recent years as the oil has started to dry up. And they're losing roughly 1,000 jobs a month at the moment in Aberdeen. Now, Aberdeen spent the 70s, 80s, large part of the 90s doing very well out of the oil industry, of course, and this was always going to happen. But it was a very effective play by the Scottish Conservatives, and the SNP are kind of furious about it, because they make the point that they don't actually have control over what goes on in the North Sea. That's a Westminster power. The argument back from the Tories would be, yeah, but you do have other powers and you should be creating more jobs via green energy, for example. Anyway, a Conservative gain from the SNP in Aberdeen South is a proper local earthquake. And I think there's a much wider lesson as well. This brings in Makerfield too. If you give voters a bloody good reason to get out the door and go to the polling booth, they will.
Yeah.
They had a very good reason in Makerfield, and in Aberdeen, Aberdeen is the oil capital of Europe still. They had a very good reason as well.
So let us say, because Naomi's not here, in her honour, that it is an argument actually for electoral reform, because the whole point about proportional representation is that it sends a signal that your vote matters, your vote counts, it makes a difference. And what we're seeing again and again is that in elections where voters know that their vote will make a difference, they turn out in big numbers.
That's right.
So there's more engagement with democracy. In a dead sort of safe seat somewhere, they don't turn up because it doesn't matter.
And it's particularly relevant in Scotland. The last 2 or 3 years in Scottish politics, they've been plagued by a phrase that I've used on this show a lot, the scunner factor, where people were absolutely just fed up of politics and wanted it to stop. And that was the reason that was given for reform having a decent foothold in Scotland as well, quite surprisingly.
Yeah.
And so this Conservative victory in Aberdeen is in the face of the scunner factor, of an electorate within Scotland who, by and large,
also kind of exploitative reversal of policies that actually the Conservatives put into law a few years ago. The green targets were put into law by the Tories.
It was ever thus in politics, wasn't it?
I know, but I think it is interesting to point out that the word that popped into my head when I saw that result was Uxbridge.
Oh, yeah.
Because I thought, this is exactly what they did in Uxbridge. They turned ULEZ, they misrepresented it, they turned it into a thing that they suggested that they're the only party that can and will stop it. And of course, none of it really was true. None of it was genuine. And the person that won the seat was thrown out a couple of years later when there was a general election. And
it's also a reminder that single issue politics is a very powerful motivator of people who may not otherwise be motivated to get involved in politics. Single issue politics are really easy to get your head around. Single issue politics are really easy to, shall we say, misrepresent, to twist a little bit. Single issue politics don't require a great deal of brain power to understand. And in Aberdeen, it was, we're getting ripped off by Westminster and we're getting ripped off by Holyrood. We hate them all, and the Conservatives move in on the flanks and steal a really surprising victory.
Yeah, basically both Westminster and Edinburgh are trying to steal your jobs. That was effectively the message. Now, very different constituency, Arbroath, where the Smokies come from.
Yes.
And as I understand it, that part of Dundee includes some relatively idyllic and well-to-do areas. So it's not your very typical. You know, when people say Dundee, you construct a particular image in your mind that might be true for 60% of Dundee, but it's not really true for this bit of Dundee, is it?
For people of a particular age in Scotland, the word construct would never be used in the same sentence as Dundee. Deconstruct or demolish would be used. Now, I know it's unfair in Dundee. It's the home of jam jute journalism. There's a lot going for it, but it has not had its problems to seek over the years. But that sort of Broughty Ferry end of it, that area where there are a lot of sort of very nice houses and there's a fair bit of money. You know, it's up the coast. Well, it's up the coast from Edinburgh, and saying that corner of Scotland has an interesting mixture of wealth and poverty, and very, very significant wealth and very significant poverty as well. So Arbroath and Broughty Ferry, the SNP were defending it, and they held it. But they held it on a turnout of, I mean, it was less than a third of the electorate bothered to vote. Something like, was it 30.8% or something? Turnout?
Yeah, it was low.
So, there's the scunner factor writ large. There wasn't an issue that was motivating voters to get out there, and the incumbents held it. And, a hold is better than a loss, obviously. But if the voters are staying at home in those sort of numbers, then the message for the SNP in that little corner of Scotland starts to become a little bit more about survival. There's a genuine threat here. And, and for Labour, of course, the Scottish results are grim.
They are on trend, and so you could construct some sort of argument with massive holes in it, but I'm sure Team Burnham will construct these sort of arguments over the next couple of days, that those two results are how Labour does without Burnham, without the Burnham factor, and Makerfield is how Labour does with the Burnham factor. And then, that might be true. One of the things that you could extrapolate from the Makerfield result is that people really do see Burnham as very different management to Starmer. There is proof, at least from one constituency, albeit very friendly to Andy Burnham, albeit in his patch, generally speaking, that is willing to consider Labour if he's in charge. And so there is a little bit of proof of concept, but like I said, it's 10 years. You could it is. Put loads of holes in it, couldn't you?
Everyone knows that politics isn't working. Everyone can feel that the country isn't where it should be. Tonight just could, be the turning point. From here on, I will give everything I have got to make it so, to ensure the name Makerfield is forever synonymous with bringing about the change this country needs, bringing back something we've lost, hope. But I do say to my own party, this is a final chance to change. This is what people said directly to me on the hundreds of doorsteps that I stood on. We must hear it. We must act upon it, and we must get it right. There will be no second chance. But it is a chance now, from this result tonight, to build a new politics based on unity and hope, turning away from the path that takes us to a divided, dark politics of the kind we see in the United States. We must now take this path and put this country back on the right path and bring people back together and get things working properly again.
Can I ask you then about Burnham's speech? Because he did win, and we should probably talk about him and his speech, which went on a little bit, it has to be said, when he finally got going. There were some things that jumped out at me from it. I'd like to know what your thoughts are as well. Some of the phrasing was very much, I'm coming for the big job. You know, this idea that there's unfinished business. He said it's a final chance for Labour. You know, there's nothing subtle about that. Bringing the change that the country needs. You know, that's prime ministerial language. That's not somebody saying, I'm going to be taking up local potholes with the relevant authority sort of language. You know, so he was talking to Makerfield voters, yes, but he was primarily also talking to Labour MPs, of course, the national constituency of voters. And of course, he was talking to Starmer absolutely directly. I thought his language was punchier than I was expecting, to be honest.
I think if anyone harboured any doubts that Andy Burnham is coming for the big job and straight away, they can put them to rest now.
Yes.
Because that speech was basically, I'm coming for your job.
It was a rangefinder if you were firing artillery.
Yeah, and you have two choices: to either go quietly in a measured way and by agreement, or not. That's what it felt like to me. Now, it's interesting that some of Andrew Burnham's friendlies, let's say, people like Louise Hay, have been giving interviews. Jess Phillips said likewise, and they've all been saying that there's not going to be any kind of movement this weekend, effectively. That's what they've been messaging. They're giving Starmer basically the weekend to think about it all. Then on Monday, he can have a conversation with Burnham and they can decide how to move forward. And what that seems to suggest to me is, because I've been hearing rumours on the Labour WhatsApps that I'm part of, that effectively they've been scoping out senior ministers, secretaries of state that would be willing to resign. They've been scoping out Labour MPs and backbenchers that would be willing to put their name behind Andy Burnham. They already have quite big numbers, but there was a big chunk of the party that kept saying, let's see how you do in Makerfield. And they think that this big result in Makerfield will help them boost those numbers to really over 200.
Do you know, I think it's even more memorable than that. I think it forces Burnham's hand. I think it forces his team's hand. A victory of this magnitude, I don't think gives him any way of not moving forwards, and not moving forwards with some urgency as well. He's kind of in a corner. You know, he's painted in by his own success. And I rather like that. It's quite Shakespearean in its own way.
Why do you say that? In the sense that this is as good as it gets for him, basically. So he has to take advantage of this peak in his momentum. He has to ride this wave. He has created a wave that was actually a lot bigger than anyone thought. And he's got to surf it now.
He has to. And he gave up his Manchester job, or he's in the process of giving up his mayoral job, because of this. You know, the ambition has always been quite naked with Andy Burnham. This will be his third attempt to take over Labour. Let's not forget. I mean, there's no way on God's green earth that he doesn't move forward now, and it's very hard to see how anybody gets in the way as well.
Yeah,
It really is. And so, whether he likes it or not, that's his direction.
Yeah, what worried me about the speech a little bit was this playing the North against the South, but all in a very English context. which I think will not land very well in Wales and Scotland.
I thought it was
in
really
my view.
clumsy, that section of the speech.
It won't land well with the many, many Labour MPs that now have southern seats. I guess that's his signature. He fought against this idea that he was using Makerfield. And I thought that was quite an elegant turn of phrase to say that it's not my stepping stone, it will be my touchstone.
Do you know, I groaned out loud when he said that. I thought, oh, do you know who that is? That's whoever used to write Tony Blair's sound bites who's at work there.
Can I just tell you that the funniest, the stupidest award of the night goes to Sarah Pochin from Reform, who was on very early on and was trying to drive this line. The line should have been that he's using Makerfield as a stepping stone to Downing Street, but she fluffed it. And she said instead, he's using Makerfield, he's using this by-election as a stepping stone to Westminster. And it is like, yeah.
That's the point, Gail. That's the point.
That's what the election is for. It's not stepping stones. Pretty much the whole thing is about being about the constituency sending you to Westminster.
What do you think's been going on for the last 2 weeks?
But maybe there were many black faces around and she was distracted. Who's to say?
Quiet. Riot. Need a laptop that's built to perform and designed to last all day? Select Windows 11 PCs starting at $499.99 are now at Best Buy. Learn more at bestbuy.com. Best Buy. Imagine that. Quiet. Riot.
Burnham, he desperately needs a programme. He needs a manifesto. He's running to lead not just Labour, but he
needs a foreign policy as well.
He needs any policy. We know that he's a shapeshifter in terms of policy because he's a very capable and experienced politician. We've struggled to find out what Starmerism is, other than being quietly competent at stuff that people don't really care about. We need to find out what Burnhamism is. Oh, that's difficult to say, isn't it? What Andyism is beyond buses. He's banging on about Manchester buses and beyond sort of regional devolution, beyond being quite good in telly and kind of looking like he knows where the A850 or something is. He has that feel about him.
I mean, on the positive side, I think Burnham does have something that is a big advantage. He looks like he enjoys interaction.
Yeah.
And I really can't say enough how big a deal that is in politics for people to feel like you want to connect to them, for journalists to feel like you want to answer the questions. And so there was a big school of thought for a long time, really, that suggested the problem with the Starmer administration was communication, was communicating the vision, narrating the story, the policies. And so actually a straight swap for someone who will be better able to do that might be a vast improvement. I don't know if that is the true. There is another school of thought that says the problem was policy. If that is true, then Burnham has a lot of work to do.
I heard the communication problem rolled out twice tonight as a defence of Starmer, not as a criticism. It's an interesting sort of volte-face from some of the supporters who are now trying to turn core weaknesses of this administration into something approaching strength. Yes, it wasn't a problem with what we're doing per se. It's a communication problem, and that's okay, but it's not in 21st politics. Now, in terms of what else happens with the battle to take over Labour and then to take over the country, obviously, I'm not a fan of kings being anointed, particularly a party like Labour. There needs to at least appear to be a fight of some sort. There needs to be some opportunity for candidates to be blooded, if you like, to have their policies, in as much as they have any policies, to be tested. And so I'm kind of hoping that there'll be, whether it's West Street, whether it's one of the grown-ups like John Healey, obviously, maybe Yvette Cooper, or Al Cairns, we've mentioned before, as sort of a wild card that comes in and creates an environment in which Burnham at least has to go through the motions of fighting for the leadership What do you think the chances of that happening are?
I think at this point they're low, to be honest, because Makerfield is such a majestic result, and we know that he's quite popular with the PLP, and we know he's quite popular with the membership, certainly in relation to other people who have suggested they might be candidates.
Yeah.
That someone like Al Khan's might do it, as you suggested the other day, A, on principle, and B, because it sets him up for a decent ministerial job and maybe another run at it in the future.
Yeah.
But I can't see anyone doing it with a genuine hope they might win. I think Burnham is at the moment set up really to take over because of the size of that victory and because he will be able to say that I can beat reform and I can beat reform comprehensively. You saw it, I just did it. So I don't know. I think at the moment, like I said, momentum is with him. I think a lot depends on what Starmer decides to do. Starmer might decide to fight.
Mm-hmm.
As I was saying in yesterday's episode, a lot of the stuff that he's doing could be displays that he's planning to fight, but they also could be desperate last-minute peacocking to try and avert a challenge. And
Absolutely.
I think now, after today's result, a challenge can't be averted. I think that much is true.
And there's one other element to this that fascinates me, and that's the idea that Burnham's timing is less than ideal.
Well, in what way?
Well, he's got a couple of years in which to prove that he deserves a full 5-year term. Alternatively, he gets the job and he's got a couple of years which aren't really long enough to do anything other than get into trouble.
Yeah.
Have the media on his case from day one, which
True.
there will be, and lose that sense of momentum, which will be a huge asset going into a general election.
I mean, flip side, if the Iran deal holds, there will suddenly be quite a big improvement in the economic outlook for the world.
True.
There are quite a lot of things that have been set up actually by this Labour administration that are beginning to pay dividends. The economy is showing a little bit of resilience. We are coming up to the big summer break. And so all of this could happen actually as Parliament is not sitting, and he could come back into the new Parliament session, do the Labour conference. So in some other ways, the timing could be seen as good.
I don't think anybody expects a general election, do they? I mean,
no. I mean, they will try it on. Reform will try it on. They will shout it from the rooftops. Their position is weakened because many of the people shouting it from the rooftops are former Tories that changed prime ministers.
More often they change their pants.
Yeah. I think a lot of people underprice how important personal reasons of family are in this. I think a lot will depend on the kind of conversation that Keir Starmer has with Victoria Starmer and his kids.
David Lunkin mentioned that tonight.
Did he? I mean, that makes sense to me. And I was thinking actually that because of what shithead Farage has been doing, which is taking his holidays while Parliament is sitting, and then coming back to cause trouble during Christmas, during July and August. You know, if you remember first summer, obviously there wasn't going to be a massive break, but then the riots came and the shortages of prison places and the whole thing just was an almighty mess. So there was no period really for Labour to celebrate its victory and get its feet under the desk. And then the next summer, he was meant to have a holiday in Scotland and it was cancelled because it was when all the leaders went to Washington, if you remember, and had that really peculiar meeting with Trump to try and avert him from his Russophile position after the Alaska meeting, if you recall. And so he had to cancel his holiday again because of that. And I was making a list, and every single holiday, apart from 1 weekend away, he's had to cancel or spoil in some way because there's been some international crisis or something going on. And I think that sort of thing makes a difference. You know, I think faced with, let's say, 150 or 200 MPs rowing behind Burnham, faced with the prospect of another summer of exhaustion, faced with the prospect of no holiday with his family, no time with his family again, that might actually be the thing that just goes, oh, fuck it. They haven't taken to me. That's the honest truth. The country hasn't taken to him. And there's very little you can do about that, I think, as a politician.
The point you make about family is so important, though, because there are so few people you can trust in politics, by definition almost. Dennis Thatcher's words to Margaret Thatcher, I think, when she finally had to walk the final walk out of Number 10, he said, "Come on, old girl, you've done your bit." I think it was words like, it was similar. I'm paraphrasing, but I think that's what he said. And it's this idea that there are very few people who can actually put a hand around your shoulder and say,
yeah.
That's it. Ambition has to be parked. There are other things in life that are much more important and are much more important right now. And yeah, I hope he's got, I do hope he's got a support network of people who can quietly say it's the right thing to do for all sorts of reasons, but mostly because it's the right thing to do for very human reasons.
Yeah.
Because he's a decent fellow at the end of the day, isn't he?
And like I said, he might decide to fight on. People have written him off several times to their detriment. That's happened very, very frequently. Let's see what happens. But at the moment, it feels like there is an almost irresistible momentum behind Burnham. And I'm not saying that to endorse Burnham in any way. I am simply audio describing what I see. But you see, the problem is I don't think that will be either the solution or the end of the shit show. I'm not saying that because I'm pessimistic about Burnham specifically, but, we're coming up to the 10th anniversary of the Brexit referendum.
Yes.
And to me, the fact that if Burnham does take over, it will mean we will have had 7 prime ministers in 10 years. And if you look at the preceding period, then 5 did 40 years between them. To me, that's significant. That can't be a coincidence. That can't be correlation. The referendum itself, I think, destabilized the UK constitutionally. But more than that, it altered our politics. It made it okay to cross lines. It made it okay to lie. It somehow degraded our political life. And I can't see us getting it back anytime soon with reform and restore around,
If you rewind back to the days of Lloyd George, where there was a period there where there were multiple prime ministers in the space of very, very few years, 1 or 2 rogues as well, it should be said. Oh, I must dig out my history books.
And one that got in via a cheeky by-election, I seem to remember.
Nothing changes. No such thing as a news story. No such thing as an old story.
Didn't Hume get in via... He resigned, I think, his position in the Lords.
He left the Lords.
Yeah, that's right. And
didn't last very long.
Yeah, so what were you going to say? There was that period of instability.
Yeah, it's cyclical almost. There are other periods within the last 100 years where British politics has been jittery, I suppose is the way to look at it, where prime ministers have come and gone within the space of less than 2 years, sometimes far less than that, and where the odd rapscallion has popped up as well as part of the quilt, the patchwork quilt of politics. So it may not be the case that this is an outlier. It may just be the case that we've been quite lucky over the last decade or two in terms of having a relatively well-behaved and relatively stable political environment, Conservative shenanigans over the last few years notwithstanding. And I kind of hope it's that way. I like it when politics is a bit naughty.
Yeah, but it's not just a bit naughty at the moment, is it? It is in a depressing state where presentation matters more than content, where there is no place for integrity.
This is the world. This isn't just politics.
Yeah, sure. But we don't have to just shrug our shoulders and say, this is how things are now. This is how things are while we put up with them that way. And I don't accept the nihilism of, we are now post-facts. I think whenever the pendulum swings one way, it eventually swings the other way.
Always.
And I think, to be honest, this is very much beyond the scope of this sleepless exercise. But I think, to be honest, if the Democrats get back in, how they treat this period will be instructive to the world and might be the turning point, because I am very much a bygones person. I am very much a let's try and unite the country and move forward. But this last period of the second Trump administration, it can't go unpunished, Kenny. There are just people doing criminal stuff. There are people stealing money. And so even if he croaks, I think there need to be prosecutions afterwards, and I think people need to end up in jail. And maybe that is what becomes the turning point.
Oh my goodness, we've gone from Broughty Ferry to Washington in the space of 10 minutes. That's quite a political journey.
Close. And Burnham did, I also noted that he did talk about the terrible situation in America.
Yeah, he did. He referenced it explicitly.
That's what happens if you choose division. Yeah, and so, we shall see. But the takeaways, I think, are a much bigger result for Burnham than was expected, although not by me, because I did call it. Very pleasing that even added together, Reform and Restore don't get near him. Restore taking 7%, I think, is significant and will give Reform really a lot of pause for thought. The Aberdeen result shows how a well-targeted, if disingenuous, campaign on local issues can win you seats. And it was a very interesting evening.
It was, wasn't it? I mean,
what's your prediction going forward? I mean, do you see the lectern coming out mid-morning Monday?
Not Monday, no. I don't think it'll be Monday. I suspect it might take a tiny bit longer than that. Apart from anything else, there will be people in Labour who do want to have Starmer leave with some shred of dignity intact. Mm-hmm. So giving him a few days before the lectern comes out is probably not a bad idea. The weather forecast is quite good in London for the next week or two, so they've got quite an interesting window of opportunity where he doesn't have to stand outside and get drowned like one or two have done. Yeah. I don't think he deserves that.
I shall let you drive the rest of the way home, darling Kenny, so and we're back on for Sunday school, aren't we? So let's try and get some sleep. Many, many thanks to listeners for staying with that. Now back to our regular programming, as they say in radio. Quiet, Riot. But your week wouldn't be complete without giving Naomi the opportunity to turn that frown upside down. It's time, of course, for Grin and Share It.
Good news is welcome to me. Bad news is hell come to me. Good news. I want good news.
What have you got for us, Naomi?
Well, I've always wondered why it's the young who are more likely to experiment with drugs when they're the ones with everything to lose, and not the older generation for whom the risks are lower and the potential upside, frankly, quite fun. Uh-huh. And I think it's the same with running away to join the circus. We always picture some restless teenager hopping on a train out of town, when really it's the older generation who stand to gain the most. Less to prove, more to enjoy, and absolutely nothing to lose by hanging upside down from a trapeze on a Sunday afternoon.
Where is this going?
Well, here it is. I mean, look, we could make jokes about the Circus of Westminster, wobbling tightropes of Keir Starmer, people toppling off them in full public view. But this weekend in Hertfordshire, a company called Generation Circus staged their over 50s circus showcase, billed magnificently as a rebellion against ageism. So the performers all ranged from 50 up to 96, doing trapeze, hula hoop, juggling, clowning around and dance. There was a 96-year-old on a trapeze. They all train every week, and the classes are free and funded by the National Lottery Community Fund.
Brilliant.
And the people are the whole point, right? You've got Carol, who took up trapeze, hoop and dance after she lost her daughter a few years ago, shattered her life, world in pieces. And she has said that the circus gave her back a sense of purpose, a bit of shine, and she's now got a burlesque alter ego on the side, on the theory that when you get older, the more you can get away with. And then there's Bob, who spent his entire life certain he was not a performer, not a stage person, But he's discovered, rather late but joyfully, that he absolutely is one. It's run by a brilliant woman called Emma Taylor alongside her daughter Maisie. They are a proper circus family 3 decades in, with a husband backstage who fixes everything from the rigging to the fairy lights. And as Emma puts it, there is something radical about seeing people reclaim play, performance and visibility later in life. So that is your invitation for the week, dear listeners. Forget the train out of town, find your nearest trapeze, and if you know someone who needs reminding that the best act of your life might still be ahead of you, share this one with them.
Oh, I love that.
That's fab.
I love that.
What would your circus act be, Alex?
Oh, I don't know. If burlesque is included, as it sounds as if it does.
No, circus act. This has to be something different you don't normally do.
Naomi said that it includes burlesque artists. I'd love to do the thing where you have to, like, move the balloons, like, really quickly to hide your
questions
bits.
I wish I'd never asked.
No, because
that bleach that Trump was pouring into his pool.
Seriously, aren't those incredibly skillful?
Or they do it with the fans.
The fans or the balloons, that you just move them so quickly. I've always admired them. In answer to your question, Naomi, I think the reason older people don't need to experiment with drugs is that we know what drugs we like. There's no need to experiment any longer. Right, so we will drop a link to this into our show notes so you can not just grin, but also share this wonderful story of people running away to join the circus.
And that is the end of today's B-Side show. We'll come back to you, hopefully refreshed, on Sunday.
And thanks also to everyone who's tuned in. If you can help support the show, head over to ko-fi.com/QuietRiotPod for $5 a month so we can keep bringing the show free to everyone at the same time, regardless of their ability to pay.
But if you can't stretch to that, leave us a review, share an episode with a friend, and follow us on Blue Sky.
We'll be back on Sunday with a fallout from the Makerfield by-election and any other stuff that happens between now and then. We love you all more than sleep.
Bye.
Bye.
Quiet Riot is an audio production from Cooler Heads, written and produced by Andreou, Naomi Smith, and Kenny Campbell. Music by Mariana Sangeeta, artwork by Simona Canelu, and edited by me, Alex Reese.
Quiet Riot. Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile with a message for everyone paying big wireless way too much. Please, for the love of everything good in this world, stop. With Mint, you can get premium wireless for just $15 a month. Of course, if you enjoy overpaying, no judgments, but that's weird. Okay, one judgment. Anyway, give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, equivalent to $15 per month required. Intro rate first 3 months only, then full price plan options available. Taxes and fees extra. See full terms at mintmobile.com.